everybody. Welcome to Reach Church Live online. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to click subscribe and comment and share with a friend through text message or whatever you wish. If you're watching from Facebook, be sure to click share and also comment and post it on your personal page. If you're sitting with your family, if you're sitting with your mom, coworker, whoever, take a selfie and tag us in a post on the story so we can see you guys because we miss you guys so much. And be sure to follow us on Instagram at Reach Church Tampa. Follow us on Facebook at Reach Church Tampa if you haven't already. And visit our website at reachtampa.com. We love you guys, and we're going to take it to Pastor Q for praise and worship.
Good morning, everyone. Do you know that our God is greater, and He's stronger, and He's mighty in power? Amen. And when God is for us, who can be against us? Amen. Come on and get ready to praise God. Water He turned into wine. Open the eyes of the blind. There's no one like You. None like You. can stand against us? Come on and sing that with me. Who can stand against us? Sing it like you mean it. Who can stand against us? Oh, oh, who can stand against us? And our God is greater. Our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is a healer, awesome in power. Our God. And if our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand against? And if our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand against? What could stand against us? What could stand against us? Nothing or no one could stand against us. Come on and give him glory and honor. Praise his word. He's worthy, he's worthy, he's worthy, he's worthy. And I've heard 1,000 stories of what they think you're like, but I've heard the tender whisper of love. In the dead of night, you tell me that you're pleased and I'm never alone. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. Who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. Oh, and I've seen many searching for answers, far and wide, but I know we're all searching for answers. Only you provide. You know just what we need before we say a word. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I is who you are. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. Welcome to our online service here at Reach Church Tampa, located in Luce, Florida, just outside of Tampa. We are so excited to have you with us. You can also visit us online at reachtampa.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram and also our YouTube channel. Also, we have a very, very special and fun Kids Church service that takes place on YouTube channel, so your kids ages 4 to 5th grade can enjoy a lesson that is taught on their level, and they have their own music and praise and worship. So be sure to let them go ahead and watch that and enjoy. Also, for your convenience, we offer several ministries and opportunities for you and your family to get connected here at Reach Church. You can get more details about that on our website as well. Also, our services will be broadcasted live on YouTube and Facebook each Sunday at 9:55 a.m. We invite you to join us and be a part of that each week. We also will be starting a live broadcast during the week, and we'll have more information on that to come. So we're very, very excited about that. Right now, please click share on Facebook and share our YouTube page with your family and friends so that they can join us and be blessed extraordinarily by the service. Spread the word. Help us out there. Also, if you've been blessed by this ministry, you look on your screen, we have detailed information on how you can sow a seed into the ministry. And the Bible says if we sow bountifully, we'll reap bountifully. But if we sow sparingly, we'll reap sparingly. And when we give with a cheerful heart. So if you've been blessed by our broadcast, we really would love to see you go and sow into the ministry as God has been blessing you and as God speaks to your heart to be a blessing. We are blessed to be a blessing. So we love you and we thank you in advance for sowing that seed into our ministry. And we ask God to multiply the seed sown. Well, we love you all, and we're so glad that you're a part of this ministry with us. And we're going to take time right now to get into the wonderful Word of God.
Well, good morning. Welcome to Reach Church Tampa, located live right here in Lutz, Florida, just outside of New Tampa. We welcome you to our service. We sure hope and pray that you've been enjoying praise and worship. We want to welcome all of you watching also live on Facebook. And we weren't able to have praise and worship and all of that live on Facebook. But you can go to our YouTube page, Reach Church Tampa, subscribe, and be able to watch that. And then after the service today, we will have our entire YouTube live service uploaded on Facebook, so that you can watch it and be blessed by the entire service. Brother Kenny, you could bring my mic down just a little bit, not a whole lot, but just a little bit. But we do want to take one more opportunity and just say thank you for joining us this morning. Today's going to be a very special service. And with everything that's going on in our nation, I felt it important that we as a church, that we take time to talk, and we take time to share, and we take time to be open. We take time to receive and be teachable and understand the state of our nation, understand the state of our church. And so we're going to talk about some things that I want to encourage you. Click share, as the announcements said in the opening, and my wife just announced. Take an opportunity to click subscribe and the notifications button on YouTube, and then, of course, on Facebook, like and share. Share it right now. Copy the link to the YouTube page and let somebody know. We're going to be talking raw and real and very candid about some things that are happening right now. But also, I do want to encourage you in the next few weeks, we are going to be full force back in live services here. And again, we are located in Lutz, Florida. And we want to welcome you or invite you to join us here. We have a beautiful piece of property that the Lord's blessed us with, and our members do a lot of hanging out before and after because it's just so beautiful under the trees and able to enjoy God's creation. And then we have a wonderful time of praise and worship and the teaching of the Word. We got kids' church, so many things. Visit us at reachtampa.com, and it'll tell you more about our service, more about our ministry and what we do. But let's not take any more time, and let's get right into our discussion today. And I first want to welcome Deb. Many of our family, our church family, knows Deb. She's actually our longest standing member. So you're our oldest person. But anyway, Deb's been a part of our ministry the longest, almost since day one. Maybe a few weeks afterwards, I don't remember. And she's raised two sons. They grew up here. Came through our kids' church. One of them is in college right now. And so I asked Deb to join us and for us to just have a candid talk. She's also a high school teacher in our community and has been a teacher for how many years?
Probably about 13 years.
13 years, teacher in our school district and in our community. And so she obviously sees firsthand on a day-to-day basis some of the things that are happening in our nation. But before we get going, there's one thing that I do want to say. I want to put a disclaimer out there. This in no way, shape, or form is to incite anger, to incite division and promote division in any way, shape, or form. This is to talk. This is to be real. This is to have a moment where we can actually talk and give a voice. Because the biggest part, and hear me on this, and I know I'm a white man. I don't know if you figured that out yet, but I'm a white man. But I'm married to a black Puerto Rican woman, and I have 4 mixed daughters. And that have encountered themselves because they have friends that are white, and they have many, many friends that are black. And they have encountered themselves at the mall. They have encountered where they themselves have been walking. We have an outdoor mall here, where they have been walking in an outdoor mall with their friends, and white friends with no blacks in their group have been doing the same thing, walking in the same area, causing the same noise, being loud and having fun, yet my daughter's groups were pointed out and called out by security. Why is that? Was it because one of them was black? You know, obviously some of these things are things that you might never have the answer to, but you got to ask yourself, why is it that the white kids get to go through the mall and be shouting and having fun, but yet our kids that are black, they're shouting and having fun and dancing and listen, they got headphones on too, and they're just listening to the music, but they get singled out. So we need to talk about these things. And to be honest with you, yes, I am a white man, but I have daughters that are affected by this. But I also have 4 future son-in-laws that some of them or all of them could be black. And I want my future son-in-law to be able to walk outside of his house with my daughter and with my grandchildren and be able to go to Walmart and be able to go to the mall and be able to go to the movies and be able to walk down the street. And if it's cold outside, I want my future son-in-law to be able to go like this and not be singled out. Because if I, as a white man, am walking down the street and I got my hoodie on, I'm not going to be singled out if I'm exercising and running. If I'm running and burning calories because I want to be healthy, I don't need to worry about a bullet coming in my back. And that's what we need to talk about. We need to talk about these things because these are real. And part of the reason that I wanted to bring Deb on is because I wanted to understand from her perspective as a teacher and as a mom of 2 not mixed and not white sons, but black sons that are off to college that are facing real issues. And so we're going to have that. But I want to make sure that you understand our heart. And our heart is not anger. Our heart is not to bring division. But our heart is to say, and please hear me, will you hear us? Will you hear us? Will you hear us speaking? Will you hear us talking? Because the rioting is wrong. The burning down buildings is wrong. What is happening in these cities, 8 minutes from where we are sitting right now, gas station is being burned down. Properties are being damaged. What began as a peaceful protest has ended in violence, or has continued in violence, and it cannot continue that way. But we have to understand, everyone in leadership, Mr. President, Mr. Senators, Mrs. Congressman, Mr. Congressman, Mr. and Mrs. Mayors, moms and dads, pastors and leaders, we have to understand when people aren't heard, they get desperate. Period. They get desperate, and we need to stop asking, what are you doing? What are you doing? You got to stop that. We need to be asking, why are they doing this? Why? And I want to read to you from 2 Chronicles chapter 7 and verse 14. If my people, and I know we've preached this from the pulpit regarding revival, regarding government, regarding the state of our nation, we even repeated this as pastors from the pulpit regarding COVID-19. If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I, God, hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. As we open up, I want to make sure that you understand we should never repay evil for evil. We cannot live eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. So the rioting, because people have posted on my personal page and people have posted on the church page, I don't condone the violence. I don't condone the rioting. It has to stop, but we have to hear. We have to listen. We can't live eye to eye and a tooth for a tooth, but we have to discuss why this is happening and not so much what is happening. I understand we need to discuss the what is happening because the rioting needs to stop, but we need to put more emphasis on why is it happening. When I get sick, listen to me, when I get sick or when you get sick, when someone gets sick in their body, we're not only concerned about what is happening to my body. When we find out what is happening, we start asking, why is this happening? Is it diet related? Is it environmental related? Am I taking medication that is causing this to happen, this side effect in my body, this wrong reaction in my body? We don't just sit and say, what? The medical field asks us or figures out, why is this happening? Ladies and gentlemen, may I offer the suggestion that we have to find out why this is happening. When we discuss the why, then individuals and groups of people feel listened to. They feel listened to. They feel heard. But let me say this, and then I'm going to begin the discussion with Deb here. It's not just about being heard and about listened to. If my wife or my children come to me and say, Dad, when you say these things, this is how it makes me feel. If I say, I hear you, baby, and I apologize, but then tomorrow I go to them and I do the exact same thing, I may be hearing what they're saying, but I'm not doing anything about it. And my daughters are going to feel like I'm not listening to them because they come to me time, and my wife, time and 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 time again. And when I keep doing the same thing over again, they doubt me and they don't trust me when I say, I hear you, baby. So we can say from the news anchors, from the news television networks, we can say from the White House, we can say from the Capitol, we can say from the police auditorium here in each local city, we hear you and we're listening. But if we're not doing anything about it, it does nothing. And let me address us Christians. We get very aggressive when it comes to not only being a hearer of the word, but being a doer of the word. Ladies and gentlemen, as we get into our discussion, may I suggest that we as Christians, we as pastors, we as spiritual leaders, we as human beings of the white race need to stop just being a hearer, but being a doer of the word. Not just being a hearer of racism, but being a doer of actually doing what we can to change it. Father, we thank you for this time together this morning. We ask that you bless this time, you honor this time, because the heart of this time is to bring awareness and hope and dialogue to the table so that we can bring change to our nation. Just a few short weeks ago, we dealt, and we are dealing with a virus that is infecting white, black, Asian, Indian, German, European, all races and cultures of people. And Father, we are now dealing with something that does involve every race of people in this nation. We've been dealing with it for years. Father, I ask that you anoint this time. Do not let sin reign, but let love be the guide. Let love be the guide, love be the umpire, for you, God, are love. But God, we're asking that love will bring change. And we ask that you anoint this time. Speak through Deb and I. Let words that are of the flesh and hurt and pain fall to the ground and die, but let that which is birthed by you, that will bring fruitful and eternal change, come forth. In Jesus' name, amen. Deb, this, not just this thing, but this quarantine's driving people crazy.
Quarantine is driving people crazy. Yes, people who are accustomed to like getting out, moving, doing things, and they're now in a situation where you have to sit at home. So, yeah, a lot of people. I think it kind of changes the mind of certain people.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think.
You're a high school teacher for 13 years. People tune in and out at different times during the broadcasts. You're a high school teacher of 13 years in this community, of the Tampa community. You've raised 2 sons. How old are they?
I have actually 2 sophomores. I have a sophomore in college, and then I have a sophomore in high school. So my oldest is 19, and my youngest is 15.
And how are you feeling as a teacher that you're a teacher of multi-ethnicity across the board? For these years, you've seen, obviously, for 13 years as a teacher, but also for 19, your oldest is 19? 19, and your youngest is 15? 15.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been a mom longer than you've been a teacher.
Right.
What's the impact? Has racism really changed in America?
I think what's changed in America, and I can even think back to when I was in high school and just experiencing racism, not just in high school, but from early on, elementary school, experiencing racism. The one thing that has changed from then and now is cameras. That's the one thing.
That's
because
powerful.
back then it was a situation where you had to just kind of go by word of mouth. Oh, she said, or he said, he did. But now we actually have the physical evidence. We can see what's going on because it seems like there's always going to be somebody that's going to be videoing, always somebody recording that's going to capture what's going on. And that's the one difference, because it, to me, has not changed. It hasn't changed. It's just more exposed because now we can see it over and over again.
Would you say it's kind of like the dirt that's under the rug in the kitchen or in the living room, that we sweep the floor, we mop the floor, we never lift up the rug because it's time consuming, it's more work, and we don't lift up the rug and we don't sweep underneath it, but the moment somebody comes by, trips over the edge of the rug, you have company over the house, somebody trips over the edge of the rug, all of a sudden dust goes flying everywhere. What I hear what you're saying, and tell me if I'm wrong, what I hear you saying is the cameras are what's removing the rug.
Yes, I think the cameras are definitely removing the rug. But not just cameras, but I think we also have to, because everybody has a different interpretation of what they see. So you'll have, there may be a situation where I can see that there's clearly racism going on, and then someone else can look at that same video and say, no, there's nothing there. But you're definitely right in as far as the rug being removed by the camera being there to see it or to capture it.
Mm-hmm. And I know what you're saying, because even though I am married to a black woman with 4 mixed daughters, there have been times where I've seen things on the film, and listen, for those that are watching, and Deb, you've known me for the years of this church, and one of the things about me is I am raw and real. I am who I am. I'm one of those guys that has had to learn how to control the way I feel and think and not say it, because I'm the type of person that I wear it on my sleeve and I say it, and over the years that can get you in trouble. But I'm very raw and real, and I'm one of those guys that even though I'm married, now I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. I grew up, to understand, for those of you that don't know, to understand me, I grew up in the black culture. The black culture accepted me, And I know if I got friends and family that never knew this about me, the reality is I grew up as a teenager. I was a rapper. So I know how to beatbox. I did break dancing. I used to do the whole thing. When I was adopted at 15 years old by a minister and her husband, they traveled all over the world. I went to Scotland, Norway, Sweden, Poland, and I was preaching on the stages of the Roman Catholic. I was rapping on the stages of the Roman Catholic Church in Poland when I was 17, 18, and 19 years old. So I haven't really, over the last number of years, really embraced it. Maybe as an almost 50-year-old, maybe I should go back to it. Not the breakdancing part, because my limbs need to stay strong. But I grew up in the black culture, and I was very much accepted by the black culture, and played basketball on the street, played baseball on the field next to the steel mill, and I know what it's like to grow up in the culture, and then to marry into the culture. You still are learning. But I myself was one of those that I would watch these things on video, and maybe it's because it's embedded in us, and we got to change this. Sometimes the words that would come out of my mouth is, but what's the full story? Can we just be real? I would think, but what's the real story? What happened before the camera started? What happened, like with the George Floyd case, we see a lot of things that happened, and then there was a several-second delay between the second filming where he crossed the street and was on the bottom line is this. Several weeks ago, the bottom line is it doesn't matter what happened before what was on the film. When a man is running and jogging and his back is to former police officers, you have no right to shoot a man, white, black, Puerto Rican, Asian, Indian, German. You have no right to shoot somebody in the back. It doesn't matter what happened beforehand. There are codes and rules that law enforcement has to abide by, no matter the color and the race of skin. So, no matter the color of skin and the race. And so I myself found myself saying, but what happened? And you do need to ask that to understand the full story. But there are certain things that happen, you don't need to understand the full story. It happened clearly because of the color of the skin. I saw yesterday a video for the first time. And again, we're just being real and raw. I saw yesterday a video of a white man completely naked running after and chasing a police officer with the police. No, seriously. Naked, completely naked. He was clearly either on drugs, he was high, he had a mental condition, and I'm not criticizing mental challenges, they're real, but he clearly had something. Running after the police officer had a rifle in his hand, and the police officer's running from him.
I've actually seen that video.
He's running from the guy. My question is, what if he was black?
He would have been shot. Would never be running after the police officer. He would have been shot. There's nothing else I could say, but he would have been shot.
And
it's really sad, but yeah, he would have been shot.
And these are the things that we have to talk about. I saw another video or it was a picture. I think it was a picture. I saw a picture of another white man laying on his bottom with his back to the police car, jeans all ripped. He was clearly resisting arrest, and that's why they had him sitting next to the car. And this broke my heart. And it was a side-by-side picture of him sitting next to the police car and George Floyd laying deceased on the ground, and the police officer had this white man that was clearly, the story's there. He resisted arrest. The police officers had to contain him, and he's sitting on the ground, handcuffed, and the police officer holding a bottle of water giving him drink. And then, of course, we all know the story of a while back, a white man arrested, and while he was taken to jail, he was taken through the Burger King drive-thru. I'm not here to incite, we're not here to incite anger. and we're not here, but we have to talk about these things. And I, as a white man, as a white pastor, as a white leader of a predominantly black congregation, I'm not going to sit idle and quiet. I'm not going to incite rage. We're going to operate in love, but we got to talk, because when we see these things happening, it's real. It's real. And when we're not having forums, when we're not having discussions where the black race is having an opportunity to be heard and listened to and action taken place. Now, thankfully, the police officer was arrested. There's questions on the charge, and I'll just leave that there so that we don't even dive into certain things, but at least he's charged. The gentleman that shot the other gentleman a few weeks ago, I think in Georgia, in the back, he was charged. So we do see things happening, but how many lives are going to be lost before the action's actually taken?
Right. Absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But not just being arrested. I think it needs to go one step further, because once there's a trial, a lot of times there'll be a trial and then the officer will be acquitted, and then that's the end of that. And to me, that's saying, or that's helping to say that, oh, your life doesn't really matter, because you can be killed in front of the entire world and it's okay. It's absolutely okay. You mean absolutely nothing. So it seems like it goes back to, and I'm a little rusty with my social studies. I'm science and math teacher, science and math. But it goes back to being that 3/5 of a human, back to the law, it's slavery in the 1800s, with blacks being 3/5 of a person. So it kind of goes back to that, and that's why I said earlier that I don't feel like racism has changed over the years, because it's still, we're still living in the 1700s and the 1800s. We're still there. Many Americans still have that same mentality, and it's really sad.
Would you pull up your son's quote? I want to read your son's quote, but in the meantime, I want to address something that even in this nation I think needs to be addressed. I was having a conversation with my wife, and me being a white man married to a black woman, the interesting thing that we need to discuss is that as a white man married to a black woman in our nation, would you agree? And again, I told Deb, Deb and I are a lot alike. The problem is we just say it the way it is. So tell me if you think I'm wrong in this, but one of the things that my wife and I were discussing, it's okay in America for a white man to be married to a black woman, but is it okay for a black man to be married to a white woman? And it's because it goes back to the olden days where the white men had freedom with the black women that they wanted to take any way and anyhow they wanted to, but if a black man had a white woman, they were taken out. And so the reality is there are still effects. There are stronger effects in some areas and lesser effects in other areas, but the reality is we're still dealing with it. Would you agree, or do you disagree with that and your phone locked?
I would definitely agree with that.
So you see the same thing?
I do see the same thing, but the question that you have to ask is why? Because it seems almost like black men are seen as some type of threat, and I don't understand why that is. But that's what from my perspective, that's what it feels like. Like black men are the enemy. They're like always the bad guy. They're the thugs, and they're the murderers, and just the most horrible people on the face of this earth. But why is that? Why do people feel that way is what I would ask.
And that's something that we do need to dialogue. I want to read, this is her 19-year-old son that put a quote up, and I thought was very interesting. And this young man, I've seen grow, I've known him since he was 8. It is appalling and outrageous to wake up every day and see yet another black person has died. Now, this is coming from a 19-year-old young black man in our nation in college. He says, I am sick and tired of being afraid to leave my home, tired of my heart rate rising every time I see someone in uniform. This country is allowing its protectors to kill us with little more than a slap on the wrist. Our oppressors think that the melanin in our skin means that we are only 3/5 of a human, which is what you were discussing. I am sick of it. I am human. I am a person. Black people are human. We are people, and we are people who have had enough. Speak on it. Spread awareness. Do not allow our oppressors to get away with this. We matter too. That's a 19-year-old young black man in our nation. And as I address this, I know some people come in and go in part of the conversations. Understand, I have 4 mixed daughters that I could potentially have 4 son-in-laws in the future. Y'all pray for me. That's going to be a lot of weddings. But I have 4 future son-in-laws that all of them or some of them could be black. And I don't want him, and I don't want my daughter, and I don't want my grandchildren being called out and affected 5, 10, 15 years from now because my son-in-law has a different color of skin. We've got to be real. We've got to talk about it. Are you afraid for your sons' lives?
I am afraid. I've had conversations with my son, and it's very unfortunate, but when we're out in public, you have to be concerned about the way that you're behaving. Mm-hmm. It's not okay for you to just completely let your guard down, because if you completely let your guard down, bad things could happen. So I've had conversations with them. Okay, if you're ever pulled over by the police, this is what you need to do. You need to do this. You need to move this way. You need to say this. And it's really unfortunate because they cannot truly be themselves. Mm-hmm. It's very sad because if you're completely yourself, then you might not come home.
Right.
So we've had those conversations.
Deep. That's deep. And that hurts.
I've definitely had those conversations with my sons. I've had those conversations with some of my friends' sons as well, who've come to me and asked me questions. I've had students who've asked questions. Why is it that it's like that? So it's very sad, but unfortunately, that's how it is. You have to be careful with how you govern yourself. And I actually have a story. My oldest son was a baby, and I can remember my husband and I believe we were sitting outside of his parents' home, and my son was asleep, and we were just sitting in the car talking. I was sitting in the back because my son was in his car seat, sleep, and then my husband and I were just talking, and I believe he had his window down he was in the driver's seat, had his window down, car was off. And all of a sudden, I saw these flashing lights, and there were these 2 police cars. One pulled up in front, and then one pulled up behind. And I'm thinking, well, what's going on? And then I see the police officers get out the car, and they approach the window, my husband's window, and just to hear them, the things that they said to him and the way that they just degraded him, because they said, oh, this car kind of fit a description of someone who was committing a crime in the neighborhood. And they didn't see me or my son in the back because we had the windows were tinted, so they didn't see me. But they were just, the way they were just berating him and just speaking to him basically like he was an animal. And I forgot at what point one of the officers noticed that I was in the car, and then the conversation changed. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, so had he been alone, how different would this have gone?
You may not have seen him.
I may not have seen him. Had he been alone, I don't know what would have happened. But they saw me and saw my son in the back, and well, we're just checking, and the conversation changed, and they left shortly thereafter. But just the way that they spoke to him was just so incredibly dehumanizing, and there was like nothing that I could. Well, the only thing I could do was just pray, just pray, because there's nothing else you can do at that moment. But with having black sons, you have to tell them things like that so that they can come home. So,
And it goes back. You said something a while ago. Black men being a threat. I know him very well, and your husband, and I know that you telling me that story. When you see him, you could easily be afraid of him. He's a big man. He's a big man. He's a strong man. And in looking at him, if I'm my size, if I'm my size, and I'm a police officer, and I look at him, and let's be real, but let's be lawful at the same time.
Right.
When I look at him, if I feel like I'm going to have to arrest him, I know that physically, my behind's going down. So immediately, but you know what? The reality is, what if it's a white man? Because I've seen the videos of white men that are 250, 275, and they're strong. They're not treated like that. They're not treated like that. So it goes back to the thing that you're saying, what is it about the black man that becomes a threat? Because if he would have been, I'm not saying it would have been different, but if he was a thin black man with a baseball cap on, would they have responded differently? Or were they trying to put him in a fear position immediately, thinking that just because he's black, he's going to come against them?
Right.
Let's talk about the school system. Are you seeing racial equality in the school system?
I am not seeing racial equality in the school system, unfortunately. I am not, and it's sad. It's really sad.
Are you able and do you feel comfortable talking about some of it, because you are a teacher? So, and we're live on camera, so I don't want to put you in, although I probably just did.
Now you know me. You know I will say, I will try to be as tactful as I can, but I will share.
Sure.
I can share.
Sure.
But I have seen in the school system, and this is school system, me as a teacher and me as a student school system. So I've seen it, both sides. I've had colleagues who are, who I like to say are low-key racist, and by that what I mean is they feel, or let me see how to explain it. I can tell that they feel like they're doing the right thing, but they're not doing the right thing. And I'm not sure how to get those individuals to understand that, no, that is not the right thing. If you have, I'll use an example. I have so many examples. But an example, I had a student to come to my room, and he was very upset. It was a little black student. He was really upset. And he said, "Miss, I was just in Miss So-and-so's room, and she kicked me out and wrote me up." I said, "What?" And so he explained this situation. She had her flag, her American flag. It was sitting on a bookshelf. I guess it had, I don't even know how, it had fallen off the wall, but it was sitting on a bookshelf. And he was walking up to her desk. He tripped because she had a cord. You know, a lot of teachers have, like, the computer cords running. He tripped over the cord and fell into the bookshelf. The flag fell over and hit the floor. So she turned around, saw him hanging on to the bookshelf trying not to fall, flag on the floor, got immediately upset, put him out, and wrote him a referral.
Hmm.
And he tried to explain it to her, but she just absolutely did not want to hear it. And there have been situations where I've heard coworkers speaking about certain students, and it's always, well, no, I won't say that, not always. A lot of times when speaking about black students, there's always this, I can't even describe it, like this just anger or this almost hate that they show when they're talking about some of their black students that I just don't understand.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, I'm the adult, they're the kids. Even if they do something or they mess up, they're still kids. So for me to hate some of my students, I don't understand that. And unfortunately, there are many people in the school system who hate their black students. And I mean, there's no other way for me to say that.
Mm-hmm.
They hate their black students, and it's
Wow.
evident by the things that they do. I have another example of when I was in 12th grade. I grew up in a very small town, Lake City, Florida, which is about 2.5 hours north of Tampa, right outside of Gainesville, Florida. 12th grade, I had a teacher. I was the only black student, and it was an honors class. I was the only black student in this one particular class, and the teacher actually sat me by the door in the back of the class, and what she would do is when she would review for her test,
Mm-hmm.
she would send me on errands. My dad actually worked at the school, so a lot of the teachers would use me as, I'd be like the little errand girl and run around and do stuff. So, but anytime she would review for a test, oh, can you take this here? And then it would be just long enough so I would be out of the room, and then by the time I came back, oh, we're all done.
Hmm.
Okay, thanks, appreciate it. Yep, I'll study on my own.
Wow.
So, and that was just, but that was, to me, normal. I was never bullied in school by, like, the other students. I was always bullied by teachers and administrators, and even, like, the superintendent knew who I was. The superintendent knew my name. I was, one thing I didn't say, I graduated valedictorian of my high school, which was very...
Go ahead.
Well,
Go
no,
ahead.
I didn't say that to like brag or anything. I said that because I was the only black person ever to graduate valedictorian. And it was like as soon as people found out that I was potential for that spot, I was a threat. So I had teachers, administrators, like I said, even the superintendent, that would do things to try to prevent that from happening. And that's why I say I don't feel like the racism has changed, because things that happened to me back then are still happening to students now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just now we see it, because now we have the video. We gotcha. We see it on the video now. But back then, just...
It is pretty interesting, not to rehash what we talked about, but it is pretty interesting to see how cameras are exposing. I want to go to another quote that I kind of, I stole it, if you will, off of my wife's page, and someone quoted this or said this on her page, and I want to read this because I thought it was extremely powerful. This woman that we've known for many, many years said, "Our nation, unfortunately," and the first line and is going to really speak a lot. "Our nation, unfortunately, understands loss of money better than it does unjust loss of lives. I do not condone rioting. However, it seems to be the only thing that shines a light." Now, let me say this. We're not condoning rioting or anything, and it has to stop. But again, remember that we're talking about we have to hear the problem and the why. "I do not condone rioting. However, it seems to be the only thing that shines a light. Deal with the root, racism, or deal with the fruit, civil unrest. Focusing on the fruit means you have one viewpoint." Let me clarify, just for those that maybe, I know you're watching. When you focus on only the rioting, you have one viewpoint. They're wrong, they're wrong, they're wrong, they're wrong. But when you only focus on the fruit, you don't go to the root and really changing anything, you got to go to the root. Focusing on the fruit means you have one viewpoint. I see firsthand the disparity in the criminal justice system, the unbelievable sentences. A man got 8 years for stealing an item that cost $10, and bail set so high you're in jail a year for a crime that merits no bail at all. I work in one of the most powerful courthouses in New York City. I worked on a certain case that was very public, and I'm not reading the case because if I said the case, everybody knows what the case is. But this person worked on a very public trial case. And so I understand the anger in the communities of people of color. And when you burn down police stations, that is symbolic of a system that has caused you deep pain. I just keep praying. When a young white male who resisted arrest, that was it. I started to read something else. So when we understand loss of money better than the unjust loss of lives, would you agree we're in trouble?
I would agree, but I also agree that that's a very true statement. I agree that that is a very true statement. It's more about money than it is about human lives. But you know, my son actually was the one who brought this quote up by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Rioting is the language of the unheard. So to me, when I hear people rioting and people looting, and I do understand, and like you said, we're not saying any of this to try to incite division or incite violence or incite any wrongdoing, but at some point, people get frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that is just a way of them showing their frustration. If you literally have someone's knee in your neck for centuries, you're going to get tired.
Absolutely.
At some point, you're going to get tired. And yeah, should people be rioting? Well, maybe not, but I do understand the why they're doing it.
And that's what I'm saying as a white man. I understand the why, and that's why we got to get to the why. Instead of being, and I've quoted I've said a couple of things, and you know, the Bible says be angry and sin not. But so the anger that's in us needs to be a holy and a righteous anger, and we need to deal with that the right way. But like you said, I'm just being real, white, black, whatever. If you put me on the ground and you have your knee in my neck, if I think I'm going to die anyway, I'm going to fight you because you're taking the very life out of me. And this thing that somebody said, somebody actually said the big famous quote because George was saying, I can't breathe. Somebody got online and said, if he couldn't breathe, how was he talking? Are you in? There's a lot of things that if I'm struggling in a room of people that smoke, and I'm not condemning people that smoke, but if I'm in a room with 10 people that are smoking and I'm not a smoker, it's not going to take long for me to say I can't breathe. So if I'm saying I can't breathe, does that mean I'm dead?
I hear what you're saying. I completely I understand, but that goes back to the person not fully understanding.
Right.
They don't get it. They've never been forced to understand what it feels like. They've
That's
never
it right
had
there.
to deal with it. So of course they're only seeing one side.
They can't relate.
They absolutely cannot relate. They cannot relate. And I feel like until they can, we're in this cycle. We're in this cycle. But the one thing I will say about this situation, I feel is different because I feel like more people are now awake, and more people now see, and more people now understand, and more people now are praying. More people now are calling out, Lord, we need you. More people now are doing all of those things, and it seems like it's kind of starting to make a little bit of a difference.
Take a turn.
Right.
And that's what we're going to believe God for. We're going to believe God that it takes a turn, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to put awareness. We're trying to expose. And the reality is this: the only way to expose darkness is light, and the only way to use light is to use the love of God and to use love. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring awareness and exposure. I do want to share one more story because, and I shared, and I put this towards the closing, and we're going to be closing in the next couple of minutes here, but I wanted to bring this to the closing, closer to the closing of our discussion today, because when I actually saw this video, I didn't cry, but I wanted to cry, because there's a video of a white mom whose white son was literally, Deb, going nuts on police officers. Going nuts. Absolutely berserk. And when I say berserk, he was running around the police car. He was fighting them. He was resisting. He was doing everything. But listen, and I want to see if you catch what we caught when we watched this. When a white mom whose white son is going nuts on police officers, and you can hear her yelling, "Stop, son, stop." If that was a black man, what would have happened? But she was yelling, "Stop, son, stop, they're going to hurt you." If that was a black son, let me ask you, if your 19-year-old son was up in the town that he's in at college, and he was walking down the street, and you were with him, or whatever, and he started going off on, I know what you taught him, but he started going off on the police officers, what would you be saying to your son, contrary to what she was saying?
Well,
Would you be saying, "Stop, son, or they're going to hurt you, or you're going to get hurt," or what would you be saying?
Well, see, I can't really answer that because it's a different situation, because my son wouldn't do that, because he would already know.
He would already know. I'm saying hypothetical.
Okay, so hypothetical, let's say he did not know. I'm not sure. If he had, let's say my son had, for some reason, lost his mind and he was running around, I would probably physically grab him. I wouldn't be saying anything to him at that point, because me talking, it's not going to matter, because I'm thinking about him, but I'm also thinking about me, because I'm still in this melanated skin too, so I'm going to be, okay, how can I de-escalate this situation and keep us both alive?
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but where I was getting at is, when a white mom is telling her white son, "Stop or you're going to get hurt," I think a black mom would have been saying, "Stop or you're going to get killed."
I see that.
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth as a black mom,
yes.
but that's where I'm getting at.
Right.
When the cameras have become the rug removed, and the dust from underneath the rug is being exposed and brought to light, the reality is, when a white mom is saying, "Stop or you're going to get hurt, or they're going to arrest you," a black mom would be saying something completely different because of the state of our nation.
Right.
You know, but that's what we're trying to bring awareness to.
No, that was what I had in my head. That's why I said I wouldn't say anything to him, but I would actually physically grab him, because I know that's going to be the next
The
step.
end result.
Right.
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 Today, as we've taken this opportunity, I do want to say that Second Chronicles 7:14. We opened up with this, and we're going to begin, and we're going to basically close. "If my people, which are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin, and I will heal their land." Let me say this. there's only one thing that's really going to heal this nation, and it's a people that gets on their face and cries out before God. And so I believe that it is time for the church to stand up and get off their butts. And I know a lot of people may not like the fact that as a white pastor in the community that I'm being raw and real and allowing exposure, but this is a reality, and this is the real world that we're living in. And the reality is we're going into stores today wearing face masks, and people that normally know us on an everyday basis may look at us from a distance and not recognize us because we got a face mask and we're covering our face how we're recognized. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to take the face mask off when it comes to this particular issue. And it's time that we deal with it. It's time that we talk about it, because this is affecting, listen to me when I say this, this is affecting a group of people that Jesus died for, just like the white person. Jesus did not die for a color of skin. Jesus did not die for a religious group. Jesus died for all of mankind. And let me say this, when your brother, when you bleed the same color, you stand up for your brother. Period. When you bleed the same color, you stand up for your brother. And sometimes when you bleed the same color, you have to fight for your brother. And I'm not saying fighting physically. I'm not saying fighting by burning down buildings, breaking up police cars. I'm saying when you bleed the same color, you have to stand up for your brother. We are family, and we don't even have Christians. In some areas, we don't even have Christians that are white standing up for our black Christian brothers that are facing this reality. And it's time that we stand up and we speak the word of the Lord. We pray the word of the Lord. And we say what needs to be said. We expose what needs to be exposed. Because the reality is, I am never forgiven of my sin until I first admit it. I can never ask God to forgive me of anything unless I first admit that it is a wrong. Father, today, we pray that you had your way, that we took an opportunity to maybe add to the exposure that's already out there, increase exposure that may be out there, and bring awareness to things that are real truths that we are battling, and real facts and real things that we are battling in our generation and in our society today. Father, I ask that everything that we said would be out of motive. I believe that everything that Deb and I brought up is a motive, out of a motivation of love, to see change, to see our black culture, our black family, our black friends, our black brothers and sisters, our family be heard, so that this rioting can stop and this violence can stop. But we've got to come to a place of hearing. God, help us to come to a place of not just being a hearer, but being a doer and putting action. Lord, you said in your word that faith without works is dead. We can say all day long that we're living by faith in a certain situation, but we have to ask ourselves, if nothing's happening in that situation, faith without works is dead. Faith without action is dead. We can say all day long that we love our brothers and sisters that are of a different color, but is our action showing it? Is our action speaking it? And so, Father, I ask that you'd help the church and help us come to a place where love begins to be action. Love means action. God bless you. Thank you for watching. Deb, thank you for coming. Thank you for being a part. I really appreciate your honesty, your forthrightness about being a black woman, being a mom of 2 black sons, and taking the opportunity to share, because these are truths and these are things that we're facing. And don't go away. Don't leave. We have some closing announcements that are going to come here in just a moment. Don't go away. Visit us at reachtampa.com, and don't forget to comment and share, and click subscribe on YouTube, and click the notifications button so you can know when we go live. God bless you. We love you, and we'll see you next time right here at Reach Church Tampa.
Hey everybody, wasn't that a powerful time of worship and a powerful sermon given by Pastor Brian? Before you guys leave, I have a few more announcements to exit us out with. Number one, if you would like to sow a financial seed to our ministry, you can do so by going to our website, reachtampa.com, and click the Give Online button, and then the directions to finish out the giving will be all laid out for you there. Number two, don't forget to click subscribe and click our notification button on our YouTube after this live stream ends so that you can keep up with everything that we're posting and talking about here for our online services. And number three, a little fun activity. Once again, if you're sitting with your coworker, a family member, a cousin, whoever, be sure to take that selfie. Take that video of what your online service of Sundays looks like now, and tag us on Facebook, tag us on Instagram so we can see what you guys are doing. Thank you for joining us this morning, and be sure to join us next Sunday morning at 9:55 a.m. We love you guys, and we'll see you next time.